I'd like to introduce you to the person that changed my life. In primary school, I used to have a speech impediment. Because I couldn't pronounce the words, I couldn't understand them. Therefore, my reading speed suffered. And before I knew it, reading was my biggest fear. But this woman right here saw that I had a problem and prioritized taking me to speech therapy every week, even if that meant she could never take me on a holiday. This woman is my mother. And here is where I started my 15-year speed reading journey. Fast forward to today, I now have an accelerated reading speed of 1,500 words per minute, which is 7 times faster than the average untrained reader. I've taught over 2,000 people from over 100 countries. But speed reading isn't this superpower which only the rare few of us can have. Just like any skill, it can be learned, and it's easy when you know how. But first you need an open mindset. There is no such thing as a bad reader, just those with bad reading habits. So once you know what habits are holding your reading speed back, it's a lot easier to read faster. Now the problem is information overload. The reason is, many of us in this room haven't had a class called reading since we were 12. Yet every other subject, such as maths and science, has progressively gotten harder. Yet we're forced to keep up with this information overload with the reading skills of a 12-year-old. Now, the end of today, everyone in this room will leave with some of the speed reading techniques that I have learned that will help you read not only faster, but more effectively. But first, let's take a look at those bad habits. Bad habit number 1, sub-vocalization. Sub-vocalization is that little voice in your head that you use from time to time when you read. From a young age, many of us are taught to read aloud. And as we progress, we then read inside our heads. At least I was. Studies have shown the average talking speed is 250 words per minute. So it's no surprise that the average reading speed is between 200 and 250 words per minute. So the average untrained reader can only read as fast as they can talk. So if we want to read faster, we must start to see the words as opposed to hear them. And we do this already. Picture this: when you see a stop sign, the words stop are clearly printed. We don't read the word stop aloud. We understand the meaning of the word, therefore we only see it. But how do we reduce sub-vocalization right now? We need to distract our brain by using small distractions. So tip number 1, press the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. For 2 reasons. This will stop you mouthing the words as you're reading, and it will also create a small distraction for your brain, not so large that it will take your mind away from the focus. Tip number 2, your environment. Your environment is key. Have you ever noticed when you walk into a coffee shop that sometimes you see people working? And it's not because of the good caffeine. It's because coffee shops have learned to create an environment which is optimum for productivity. The environment's not too loud where you get distracted with what's going on around you, nor too quiet where your brain begins to wander. The key is to get the brain into a state of relaxation, whether that's listening to music without lyrics, such as classical music, or studying in a spot which is consistent and personable to you. The key is consistency. Bad habit number 2, regression. Now, by a show of hands, who in here has got to the end of a page and thought, what have I just read? Or even worse, the end of a sentence, myself included. And naturally we go back to the top of the page, hoping this time somehow the information goes in, but to no luck. The reason is because the author often has to give context, so by the time our eyes have reached the key points, we're exhausted. Picture this: you're watching a movie and you're a couple scenes in and it doesn't quite make sense, almost like you've missed a couple key scenes. And then suddenly, it clicks. It all makes sense and you understand why the movie was set out the way it was. The reason for this is not a lack of understanding, but more so a lapse of concentration. And one way we can improve our concentration is by becoming an active reader. When our brain wanders, it's because we become passive. What's one of the most common questions children ask? It's why. Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? We need to be curious. To find a good answer, we must have good questions. So whilst reading, have good general questions at the front of your mind, such as, how long will this take for me to read this? What am I looking for? And what key figures and words do I need to find? Tip number 2, gliding. For gliding, you will need to use an object such as a credit card or any piece of object that you can use to cover up the sentence you've just read. Now, the great thing about gliding is it removes your safety net to reread the sentence you've just read. Meaning you've got to pay attention to the sentence you're reading because you know there's no way you can go back. Bad habit number 3, fixations. Fixations are where your eyes are still on the page. Now, on average, an untrained reader has between 10 to 15 fixations. Read this sentence for me. Just take your time. There's no rush. I'm not testing you.